Why is it not showing? It's just slow. Could be. In case anybody's there, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm trying to find the post in group, so I can set it as featured and like I normally do, but I'm not finding it in group, not seeing it in group. Like, why not? Very strange. Very strange. Yeah, happening now. It shows me the video, but I can't find it in the group, which is rather odd. Very strange. Okay, well, I'll just share it to the group then. Very peculiar. There we go. Okay. Now we'll see. I'm just waiting for Sher and Jessica. I'm not sure if Sher is coming, but Jessica said she was coming. So, yep, there we go. Now it shows. And there we go. Pin to featured. And wonderful, wonderful. So I'm hoping those that said they were coming will come. I'll be patient. I'll be patient. Okay, very good, very good. Let me just tell them here. Wonderful. Wonderful. Yes, somebody now. Jessica. 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 Wonderful. Are you there, Jessica?
I am here.
All right. Brilliant. 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 Just it was slow to show in the group today. I don't know why. I came on early actually, and it just took a long time for it to actually show in the group. Anyway, we are now. All right, very good. Good to see you again, Jessica. Very good to see you
again too. Yeah, I mean, so you coming in early was a good thing then.
Yes, very good. Yeah. Just odd and peculiar as to why it would do that. I don't know why. So,
yeah.
But it did give me a chance to, get everything sorted and set up, and we're live and we're in group, and everybody can see us. And so I'm just looking for the comments. What's that? Yeah. That's all. Yeah. Now that's all. Yeah. Okay. Oh, well. See, now it's showing twice. You see, that's what I was waiting for, and I shared it, and now it's showing twice. Oh, this is this one. Oh, okay.
This is really interesting.
Yeah. So, all right.
It happens.
yeah. Let me take this one out, and there we go. This is the one that I want to be. Yeah, that's the one. Okay. Yeah, it took a long time for it to show in the group. It's really wild. Where it shows in the timeline of the group, so that I can, share it and see the comments and stuff like that. It's very strange. Very, very strange. I don't know why. So very peculiar, very peculiar. Jessica, before last week we were talking about the pressures of should, right? And I'm just keen to hear a little bit more, and particularly I'm keen to hear from you how should and should with inverted commas are different, and also how should affects you in negative ways, right? And also in your work, how you see the negative effects of should. If you could maybe just elaborate a bit on that.
Yes. So should, when it's connected to, myself and how it's affected me, there was time, like, growing up, I believed that I, should be, a certain way. I should use or drink in order to, cope with things.
Say that again. Say that again.
I should use or drink to cope with things.
Wow. That was a should that really, really bit you.
Yes, it did. It very much so did. I should put others first always.
Yeah.
And, don't worry about myself.
Exactly. And we use that example of how this gets you killed and your children killed in an airplane when it depressurizes and the oxygen masks come forth. Take care of others. Oh, take care of the kids. Yeah, you run out of oxygen, you pass out, and both you and your children die, right?
Yes.
So,
yes, very much so. And, there's also the shouldn't. You shouldn't show emotions. You shouldn't express yourself. You shouldn't stand up for yourself.
It's still a should, even though it's a shouldn't. It's you should not. It's still a should. Correct.
Yeah, exactly. And and in my line of work, I see a lot of I should not ever express my feelings because men don't cry. I should let people walk all over me. I should just follow everything to a T, and I should get through this, because if I don't, then I'm not going to get out of here. And the things is like I should use, because that's how I get how I don't have to deal with certain things like feelings and other aspects, self-defeating thoughts and shadow thoughts. And I should listen to everything that is told to me and do it. I should follow the AA or NA program, and it takes away that, because, okay, so something that I learned is that should in itself is a belief that's instilled by others. And something that I'm noticing more and more, even with myself, because I remember when I first heard of like the word should, like, isn't, you have to take that out of the vocabulary. I'm like, wait a minute. And so I spent like an entire, good few hours with both Cher and CJ on the concept of should and why it is a big thing within the vocabulary. And until I started talking to you, so about the word should, I didn't fully understand the fact that should is this belief that's instilled by others. I thought that, again, at that moment in time, that Cher and CJ were just a bunch of, full of BS at that point in time. So I'm like, what is wrong with these two? Like, no, but, so when I realized that, should is actually a belief that's instilled by others, and I truly understood it, I see it more and more of how should affects myself as well as others in my line of work.
Right. Sure, sure. Hello, sure.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Glad you're here, sure. Glad you're here. Glad you. How are you? How are you?
I'm here. I'm listening. So,
Good.
good morning,
Good.
everybody.
Anything to add on? Should I asked the question just to recap for last week? We talked about the pressures of should, and just to recap, and I just want to add what you were saying there. Yes, it's a belief system, but it's a very particular type of a belief, because it is saying whenever you say should, you are pressing on somebody's goodness, right? Should implies this is what good people do and what a good person is supposed to, must, has to do, right? So you can't not do it. If you don't do it, then you're a bad person. And this is where should is so dangerous, right? Leverages, it manipulates your goodness. And now, of course, the original usage of should was, well, you should be a good person. Okay, we all agree with that. But when it's saying you should be obedient, not so much. Okay, if I'm being obedient to sensibility, okay, but I still need to choose it. Even then, that can be detrimental to your overall psychological development, because you're just following orders. You become mindless, right?
Mhm.
So we think obedience is a default should. No, it's not. Yes, you want people to be sensible, but they need to learn to choose that sensibility. Okay, maybe when they're very young, but still, this is the point I'm making: is that it leverages and manipulates beliefs and ideas based on leveraging your goodness, and that's where it comes
Yes.
in.
And so that makes them, to me, that brings me back to a time in my life where, and I know Sherry can definitely confirm this too, but a time in my life where I went against the grain with everything, you know.
Yes.
I literally I did things to the beat of my own drum, and you know, I always considered everybody else as robots because it was just, you know, there is this mainstream everything, and I didn't like that. I literally did not like that until I got so tired of being called defiant, and you know, things just, people just not liking how I was doing things and how I did my own thing. And you know, they didn't like that. So in that case for them, it was, I was just being very defiant and not following, you know, what they tell me to do. When in reality I was just doing it in my own way.
Right.
And you know, and then somewhere along the line, I felt that if I don't obey what they're doing and be obedient, then, you know, in their eyes, essentially, and what they think that I should do, then I'm never going to get out of this. I'm never going to get out of the system or institutions. And so that's where like that whole brainwashing process started, um, in that aspect of stopping to beat, you know, stopping the whole thing of beating, you know, the beat of my own, or walking, yeah, anyways, walking with the beat of my own drum.
Yeah.
But I still do it in a sense, and I still do it today now, and it's becoming more and more where I'm doing it like I used to, just less aggressive.
Yes. Yes. That's very key. That's very, very key. Sure. I'm keen to hear from you on this. In particular, how shoulds and inappropriate shoulds, and that's the key, right? There could be appropriate shoulds, and also there are many inappropriate ones, right? Because should has been manipulated and subverted, unfortunately. But I'm keen to hear how that's affected you. Yeah, yeah.
How inappropriate shoulds have affected me?
Yes, yes. Yeah, like specific examples, maybe, or just anything that you have to say on should. Doesn't matter. I know should is a big deal for you.
What pops up what comes to mind immediately when I think of should is the should that I absorbed myself. I mean, I made them almost like my life rules.
Yeah.
A really good example, I gave one the other day to Jessica, and in a conversation we were having, and I do not lying, and I don't even like really telling white lies.
Yes.
I have a real hard
Yeah.
time with it.
Yeah.
So the other day I told her, I says, well, we could just say this. And I was like, oh God, I lied. I'm going to burn in hell for this.
Yeah.
Well, she asked me directly. She said, oh, is that one of your conditioned beliefs? And I'm like, yep, it sure is.
Wow.
But that's just because I had always told myself all these things that should make a good person. You don't lie, you don't cheat, you always try to be outstanding as possible. And if any of these, are not followed, well, then you should feel guilty and you should accept your comeuppance.
Interesting.
And that's not necessarily so.
No, because it's about appropriateness, right?
Yeah, right. Because there are times, whether I like it or not, there are times where we do have to not so much stretch the truth, but gosh, we just go around like telling people, in my opinion, I don't see where we can always go around telling everybody the honest, blatant upfront truth of, like, what if you come across somebody that really just smells bad or something, because maybe it's just in their way that they just don't shower, but every few days or something. So what are you going to do there? You just can tell them you stink, move away. No. you got to be nice. So that's kind of a lame example, but my should.
It's a very tricky. This is a very you've touched on one of the most difficult instances of life, in where our appropriateness when it comes to honesty is very, very difficult. Let me just say hello to Janelle and Ryan. They're in chat.
It is.
Yeah, I thought maybe you'd want
it's been one of the I would have to say, my most challenging lessons or chapters, in unbinding from that whole idea of there's just so many things that it goes back to. Honesty, our self-honesty, like me with, trying to lose weight and stuff. I'm telling the other day, oh gosh, they say here it is, should lose 10 pounds a month. Well, for whom? Who does that apply to? What part of the population? Because I certainly don't meet that. So I was kind of almost berating myself for not having met my 10 pounds a month. Well, I've lost 60 pounds, and that's quite a substantial amount. So I shouldn't listen to all the people that are full of that bullshit.
Exactly.
As long as I'm doing it. As long as I'm doing it, right? So, yeah. Anyway, that's my piece on should. I don't think we should on ourselves, because it's just shitting on ourselves.
Exactly. And I just want to say hello to everybody real quick, but I want to carry on this. Is a good point I want to mention on this. So hello, Norma, glad you're here, and Ryan and Janelle are here, I'm sure. So that's really cool too. So, and Norma, Norma too.
No. And so I'm going to go ahead and mute myself, because I have a habit of interrupting a lot. So I'm going to do that. So I don't want to.
Not a problem. You interrupt all you like. It's not a problem. No worries.
I do want to interrupt with this one part here, though. There's a great big should in life. I don't know how many parents are listening. I know Jessica's a parent. I am.
Yes.
We tend to thrive on shoulds as a parent. We compare ourselves.
Excellent. Yes, that's the point I wanted to mention.
Compare ourselves to the book, to the literature, to what we see on TV, to our neighbors and friends, that we should be this type of parent. And
Yes.
If we all just throw away all those books and everything that just says how you should be as a parent.
Yes.
And the only thing, honestly, that we need to do is just listen to the kid. Listen to them. Just listen.
Exactly. Pay attention. Do what's appropriate, not what you think you should do. Right now.
Right.
Now, this is the points that I wanted to bring up. Right, the connection between should, especially with parenting. Right, because that's what I wanted to ask you. I wanted to say, sure, you could probably share how your shoulds have really bitten you when it comes to being a parent. How you
Agreed.
did what you think you should do as a parent and realized, oh, no, 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 no. Right?
Right.
Now it shifts. But what should I do? If I shouldn't do what I thought I should do, what should I do? That's the question. And throw should out the window. Do what's appropriate.
Yeah.
Do
What
what is
feels
appropriate.
appropriate in
Now,
that moment?
right. But I need to clarify, sure, because you and I and Jessica, we've gone over what appropriate means. Yes, but
That's
somebody
true.
listening may say, but so this is terrible. This is horrible. How can you not do this? Because for many, the word appropriate is confused with the word proper. Two different things.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Proper is somebody else's idea of what you should do in a particular circumstance, right? That's it. So the proper thing to do as a parent is this, and this. Well, does that work? Well, as you and Jessica both know, no, hell no, it does not work, right? So it may work in some circumstances, but it depends on the circumstance, right? So appropriateness takes two things into consideration to be appropriate: the situation or the context, environment, everything that's involved, right? And what you're trying to do, your motives, your goals, your intents, the situational goals, the goals of everybody else involved. So you need to take what needs doing, the intent, the motivation, the goal, and the context in the situation into account, right?
Yep.
So those two core things, the situation and what you want, right? What you desire. Go ahead, Jessica.
Just like, okay, so just like with my boss, we spoke with this earlier about this earlier. So, is my boss can come across as sometimes very arrogant, but it's it's inadvertent, like arrogance. Because he has a huge heart and his emotions get away from him. And there's times where I witness it myself, and it's not appropriate to express that to him or share that with him. Reason being is because he's not there yet. He's not there at that point in time. Now, but it is appropriate when I am talking with, my clients about it and helping them understand or guiding them to understand that, this is how he is and this is how he is right now. He just has he's way passionate about his work and about assisting others and guiding others. And when things don't go the way that he feels that it needs to or he wants it to, then he gets very, very stuck on that and hung up on that. And it affects him. So there's appropriate times. So I chose the appropriate time as to whom and where, as well as when.
Exactly. And TMI, for instance, this is a very good example of appropriateness, right? When we say too much information, well, it depends. I mean, if this is your husband, your partner, you may want to hear all of those detailed things. And, well, you may not enjoy hearing it when they're talking about the hemorrhoids or whatever, but they need to discuss it with somebody. And, you're the appropriate person to share it with, right? Okay. Or the doctor. So the doctor can't say to MI, no, it's about appropriateness, right? Imagine if your doctor said to you, TMI, sorry, I don't want to hear about this. This would be terrible, right? So, we need to understand this, that the same thing, the point I want to make here is the same thing in different circumstances is or could not be appropriate or inappropriate, right? So it depends on the situation. Like I said, if you standing up in assembly and you start talking about your hemorrhoids, maybe not such an appropriate environment to do it with, right? But it could be. So I've known people who, man, just whatever they thought came out of their mouths. It was astonishing the things they would say. They had no conception of appropriateness when it came to things. So it's too incredible. It's like, seriously, dude, seriously. And even with, doing things that, it's a very peculiar example, but when I was a teenager, I stayed in a house at one time. It's like a holiday thing and kids came and went there. It was a very cool place to be. But the one boy, we all slept in a similar room there. He would just masturbate and, all over. It's like, in front of everybody. He didn't care. It's like, hello, dude, you got no sense of appropriateness? Man, this has blew my mind, you know. Anyway, so points of some people have no boundaries with appropriateness. But I'm trying to point out, though, that, you know, in certain circumstances, things are appropriate, and in other circumstances, hell no, they are not. And we need to understand this. Now, in the same way as that person talking about the hemorrhoids, or that boy masturbating in the room there with everybody and, you know, not caring where he made a mess and everything, it was astonishing his inappropriateness. That to also understand depends on what he was trying to do. If he was trying to be a hooligan and a jerk, intentionally so, let's say, I don't know, for argument's sake, let's say he's preparing for a film role, right? And he's playing the role of somebody who's thoroughly inappropriate, and he's practicing. Okay, well, now I can understand. You know, you're talking about your hemorrhoids in front of everybody. You're preparing for a role, and you know you're getting into character. Okay, it might be appropriate now. And see, so depends on what you're trying to do. Appropriateness changes depending on what you're trying to do and the situation, right? So same behavior in different situations can be appropriate, inappropriate. So it's very powerful to understand this. So in other words, appropriateness shifts and it changes. Yes, sure. Yes, sure. Please, just jump in. Just jump in. Don't worry. Just jump in. I don't mind if you interrupt me. It's not a problem.
I was just thinking that you know, when both of you talking about, you know, this key word is appropriate, but I also got to wondering, you know, is there or has there ever a word that's more indicative or implies more to a person's mindset than the word should? I mean, when I really sit down and think about it, it points back to a lot of where my mindset used to be, and now, you know, trying to separate away from, you know, that the old self, the me of that, and there's still some parts that are lingering. The parts that are lingering are always attached to should, because that should is a huge part of my beliefs. To me, it still kind of shows where my mindset is. So that's what I'm wondering, you know, has there ever been a word that's been more powerful than that word should? It's negative and positive both.
Correct. So I'm trying to understand your question a little bit more clearly here. Are you asking if there is an alternative to should that we can use?
No, it's kind of a more of a rhetorical question, I guess. You know, is there a word that's much more that could be any more powerful than should?
To me, I think should is one of the most influential words in our lives.
That's the word I was looking for.
More than a word, it's a concept.
Correct. Right. Yeah. Influential. That's the word I was looking for.
Right. I got you now. Yeah. I mean, it's astonishingly influential. It affects everything that we do. I don't know many words that are more influential than should. Yes.
Yeah. Well, because it does really shape our beliefs.
Exactly.
Well, you know, I mean, you know, our parents, the way I raised my own kids and the way my parents raised me, everything was based on should, and that should came from what they were.
Exactly. I mean, should is like a virus. It propagates and it feeds on itself, you know, and once it's in you, it feeds on itself and it builds more. It definitely is a virus conception. Absolutely. And you know, not in a good way necessarily, unfortunately, because, you know, the deeper problem is unawareness. So when you latch onto should, it's leveraging your goodness. I'm trying to be good. Yes. And now, that because I have limited awareness, I am good in a way that's inappropriate, right? We get back to inappropriate application of goodness. And here's where the problem comes from. I believe deeply that I'm doing the right thing. And I'm telling my kids, you should do this, you should do this. And I believe this is the right thing. Oh, she's connection dropped. Right. She'll be back. I hold your point, Jessica. I see you want to have a point. So hold your point. So this belief of mine that I'm doing the right thing, and I keep doing it, believing it so, and I get stuck in my bubble and I repeat it over and over, and I force the same stuff on others. So we have inadvertent arrogance because of should. Because should is so strong. I think I'm doing the right thing, and I want you to do the right thing, and I think I should make you to do the right thing. I should force my beliefs onto you. Of course, we know this in the context of religion today. We in a world where, forcing your religious beliefs on others is a no-no. But go back in history, even in many parts of the world today, even you have where forcing your beliefs on others is part of the culture. If you don't conform, you're out. You're in trouble. You go to jail, or all sorts of other horrible things happen to you. So when we understand this, it's like, holy moly, should is horrible. It's terrible. For instance, take when you had religious wars like the Crusades, right? Everybody went and joined the Crusades and supported the Crusades because this is what we should do. What are you doing? What are you doing? You're fighting other people who are trying to be good based on their religion. You're fighting other good people just because they just, it's just horrible. It's just horrible, So, but we get caught up in shoulds very easily, and it just disrupts everything. Once we understand this with should, our whole awareness changes because we are looking at the bigger context. We're looking at more. We're thinking about what it is we are doing, and that is the key, right? So when we start to question should, I'm not saying throw it out the window. Of course not. Some things are, well, you should be good. Well, duh. Okay. So not all shoulds are bad, but that's the point, is that we need to think about it. So when you say you should be good, well, how exactly should you be good? Can you force help on people? No, you can't. So there's lots of ways that we can be inappropriately good. But the key is it's about awareness, understanding bigger context, looking at things from multiple perspectives and thinking things through to the end, right? Two key criteria. Please share, Jessica, please share.
Yes, definitely. And there's more that goes on with what I was going to say as well, while I was listening to you. One thing is that, like, when it came to like my parenting skills, my initial parenting skills with CJ, it was, I wanted him to think for himself. That was my biggest thing, is that, I wanted him to think for himself, to have his own voice, to know that he has a voice. Because of how I was raised, there was never really a whole lot of thinking for myself. It was definitely a lot of do what I say and not as I do type of thing. And to me, like, it always would irritate me when other people would be like, CJ, do this, do that, do as I say. And I'm like, he's his own person. Like, he's his own entity. But then somewhere along the line, like, I got caught up in should and how to parent my child, because there was a lot of people that didn't agree with the way I was parenting him. And so I got caught up in the should. And, a lot of people, like, the shoulds come with, when some other people, like, press out onto somebody else. That is, a lot of that's too also because they don't agree, through their own unawareness. They don't agree with how somebody else is doing something.
Exactly.
And so they feel the need to voice that. And honestly, just because you don't agree with how somebody's doing something, and this is something I've had to learn in my recently, especially in my line of work, is that just because I don't agree with how somebody is dealing with something or handling something, does not mean that I need to impose the should. However, like, the appropriate way of should for me is, and this is my belief, that I should communicate with my boss my needs. I should communicate with him, I need to do that. So in that context, the should is actually a need. That I need to do this because it is appropriate.
Correct.
To communicate with him and let him know what's going.
Exactly. And if we just, to me, I try to use that word should as little as possible. Oh, actually, I really don't ever use it. Why? Because there are other ways I can say things that are much more appropriate. For instance, I need to do something. Okay, maybe technically I don't need to, but I could say it's strategic for me to do this. It's appropriate for me to do this.
Yes.
Now, when I say, I should speak to my boss, if I change it to say, it's appropriate for me to talk to my boss. Well, is that actually true? See, because
Appropriate and strategic.
should is very easy. It's very easy for us to internally agree with should, right?
Mhm.
Because should, well, how do you not agree with should? If you say, well, you shouldn't, then it's like almost you being a bad person, right? Because it's got that connection. But all right, if you just mean it in the sense of appropriateness, it's still got that flavor to it. But if you say, it's appropriate for me to talk to my boss, your inner honesty kicks in and say, but Jessica, is it really? But so, is it really? And now you think, oh, wait a second, have I considered everything? Let me think a bit more. You see, now you start to re-say, why am I looking to speak to my boss? And what context am I talking about? Well, is it a short-term thing, longer term? I see. Wow. Suddenly, your awareness has expanded and you're looking at the thing in a very different context, right? When we switch from should to saying either appropriate or strategic, or is it, sensible for me to talk to my boss? Is it necessary? Do I need to? Well, if you say need to, do I really need to? Well, I don't technically need to. I'm not going to die if I don't speak to my boss. But if I don't, then I'm, going to be, whatever the problem is, that's not going to get solved, right?
Overwhelmed.
So, right. But I'm saying, so when you say need, it's like, what does need exactly mean? But when you say appropriate, well, now you're taking into consideration need and all of this other stuff. So, to ask yourself just this, is it appropriate in any situations, anytime? You can do this, as a matter of fact, as a good habit. I would recommend this, and for your residents, for your clients, right? To say, get into the habit of every now and then saying, well, first of all, what am I doing? And is it appropriate? That's it.
Yes,
You could.
I guess for me, in the instance of need, it goes along in the context of urgency. Like reminding myself that is urgent that I talk to him about this, especially when it comes into matters of my schedule, as well as knowing what's going on, and if I need a cover or what have you. To me, that there's that urgency with it, so that reminds me, yes, it's like basically me flagging it as something that's very important, very urgent, that I talk to him about it. Now, that's the only time like I feel like the need to talk to him. And so like I use it in the context of like urgency for myself. However, I also do wait for the appropriate time to talk to him. And reason being is because, okay, is this like a super top urgent thing that needs to be talked about, or can this wait a few more hours, and so that's the thing, is that like I also have noticed within my own conversations with people, clients, coworkers, my bosses, family, things like that, that I have essentially, and for the most part, there's a few times where I've slipped with the word should, but I've replaced it, corrected myself. However, I have mostly taken it out of my daily conversations with people. And reason being is because since I now understand the, the whole meaning of the word should in that sense, in that stance, it really shapes and changes how you talk to people and how you stop and process your own words before you say something.
Yes. And most importantly, it removes that default, or not necessarily a default, but that inadvertent arrogance that inadvertently creeps in.
And cueing.
Right, exactly. And the moment I say should, am I not being inadvertently arrogant in a sense? Because I'm deciding what's good and right for you.
Or for yourself.
You don't know what's good and right for me.
Right, exactly. Sure. Say again, sure.
I said, or for ourselves, we can be
Exactly.
we can be arrogant with ourselves.
Exactly. We can be thoughtless, which is that inadvertent arrogance. I just assume that whatever I think is right. No, sorry, exactly, sure. Inadvertent arrogance when it comes to ourselves. Very important. Very important. We want to be thoughtful, considerate, discerning. Yes, when it comes to ourselves. think things
Yeah.
through to the end, and think things from multiple perspectives, not just one to another. To go
Right.
from black to white doesn't really help you very much. You're going to end up in a gray world. Shift to
You
all
know,
the colors.
right. There's something that I've noticed about the way I treat myself. However I'm feeling, and I don't know if this is true for anyone else, so I'm speaking for me. But the way
Yes,
that I
yes,
feel
yes.
about myself is exactly the same way that I am going to approach anybody else.
Yeah,
Every time, no matter how I'm feeling about myself, whether it's confident or whether it's standoffish, withdrawn, maybe I've got a hole in myself that day or something, or I just didn't check my mood. It's gonna always come out to the other person. So
exactly.
if I'm not checking my shoulds at the door,
Exactly.
so to speak,
Exactly.
it's gonna come out all over everything else. So
Yeah. We live in this myth. Most people live in this myth that they can hide things from other people. You can hide
we can.
some things, maybe, possibly from some people, but there are other people, no matter what you're trying to hide, they see it all, right? You're naked to the world. And really, we
Okay,
labor
yeah,
under
I
this
am.
myth. And the reason we have this is because, like with BMNs and narcissists, right? They don't think people see them. Well, first of all, they don't even notice other people, but they think they get away with everybody because people just tend to ignore them and don't pay attention to the things they're saying because they don't want to acknowledge what they're saying because it's such a mess. It's so much nonsense. So they just kind of go along with it. So, well, whatever. And they move on and you never see them again. Right. So this is very important to be aware that, dude, you're not hiding anything. You're not fooling anybody. You may think you're fooling anybody. The only one you're fooling is yourself. But really, anybody who's got a little bit of awareness and discernment and who's able to pop outside of their own bubble, and that's why people don't see it, because they're in their own bubble, right? So basically, the two are saying two different things, and neither knows what the other's saying. They don't see the other person, and they think because, well, I'm not seeing them, they're not seeing me. It's that like idea that, oh, well, you can't see me now because I can't see you. No, it doesn't work that way. But when you realize that, you don't really have anything, you can't really hide anything, you start to live in a different way. It's a very powerful mechanism. So that's what you're saying, right?
That hiding, exactly. Plus that hiding creates a lot of anxiety. When we think we're hiding something from somebody, that anxiety is going to pull up and show up every single time.
I mean, people will ignore it because they don't want to deal with it, but that doesn't mean they don't see it.
Right. But I can't count how many times my kids have always told me that they could read me like a book, and they probably could.
Yes.
Your eyes are very expressive.
Yeah, but you're a good book to read. You're a very good book to read. Yeah, you're a very good book to read.
But it's kind of funny because here I go along thinking, it's like, oh, nobody knows what I'm thinking or feeling. Oh, hogwash. Yes, I do.
Yeah. Well, and also what fascinates me, and I thought this is where you were going to go, but then you went in a different path, is that when you feel in a particular way, right, regardless of how that feeling comes, you tend to treat people how you feel. In other words, if I'm irritated, then suddenly Jessica's irritating and Cher's irritating. No, they aren't irritating in and of themselves. They're doing the same things they did yesterday. And yesterday I wasn't irritated, but today I'm irritated. Why? Because I was irritated. I believe they are irritating. It's a very big difference, right? Between somebody irritating me and them being legitimately, objectively irritating. And this is when we allow our emotions and our feelings to become facts, right? So if I'm irritated, I let this overtake me and suddenly everything is irritating. No, it's not. So our beliefs and our feelings, when they loop together, as we've spoken about many times before, can distort our rationality. When our feelings and beliefs take over and they form a self-reinforcing loop, they can take over our rationality and our logic. This is so incredibly, incredibly powerful. So we have to be very, very careful of giving legitimacy to our feelings and our beliefs. And I want to just connect all of this. Sorry, hold your point, sir. I want to connect all of this to anxiety and worry, because this is our course, freedom from anxiety and worry. If you want to be free from anxiety and worry, two things that I just mentioned: get rid of should, because should we tend to be, most people that are in typically that are worry pots and are in anxiety, they think they should be worrying and they should be anxious. And secondly, they let those feelings become facts to them. They feel like they should. So they feel like they must worry, and the worrying is necessary and it's important and it's right, etc. They have come to believe that the feelings of worry and anxiety are necessary, and so they can't change it, and it's a fact to them, and all this stuff. So many we can get into that another time.
It's a
But
very
this is
vicious
very important.
loop.
Very important. Exactly.
And that's the thing
Vicious
too,
loop.
is like when we are told, like, you know, you should do this, you should do that, you should, you know, dress a certain way, or you should act a certain way, or you should talk a certain way, or think a certain way, you should have these certain values, and you're not meeting up to those expectations of others, you know, because of their beliefs. Then you start,
Exactly.
you know, you start to create, I personally anyways, not, you know, that's, I don't know if anybody else, like, you know, but me personally, I start to feel anxious when I'm not, you know, and worried, because I'm like, I'm not living up to that expectation. Holy cow. Like, no, like, and I start to feel really anxious about it. And
Financially, think
yeah.
about that one. How many
Yeah.
people financially are insecure because of that? You should be having this much money, this kind of credit, etc., by age such and such.
Yeah,
God,
exactly. Oh, terrible shoulds. Norma asked a very interesting question. She said, so beware spontaneous. I'm assuming you mean, so be aware spontaneously. I'm not sure exactly, Norma. And then she says, how often is timing essential? Timing is always essential. And this is
Yes.
the key. So either
Yep.
either when you, if you mean beware, or to be aware, because that's kind of the same word, actually. Beware is just a combination of be aware. It's the same thing, right? But beware, when it's combined, is specifically related to some kind of danger. Whereas be aware, I can be aware of the magic, the moreness, the awesome. Now, this is the magic, right? If we apply our awareness to beware only, we don't notice the wonder and the glory. However, my example here, let me give a better example. I'm walking through the forest, la 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 la. I'm all happy walking in the forest, right? And I'm in my own little bubble, and suddenly I'm like, oh wow, okay, here's stuff going on, right? Oh, so the forest has gotten all quiet. Oh, well, what does that mean? It typically means that there's tigers nearby somewhere, right? Or some kind of danger. However, if I'm walking through the forest, and instead of me in my own little bubble, I'm like, wow, man, and I'm aware of the entire forest around me, and I'm appreciating all of the awesome glory and the magic and the interconnectivity and the life of the forest. Should tiger happen to be somewhere and make an appearance, even if it's not close to me, I'm obviously going to notice the forest getting quiet. I'm going to notice there's a shift. I'm going to notice the rustle in the bush, which is a snake or something. My point is, if we're aware of everything and we're appreciating all the moreness, we're going to notice the distortions and the disruptions in the pattern. And this is going to then, we can shift to being beware, right, from awareness. But if you only are focusing on the negative, you'll miss the positive. That's my point. If you focused on all the positive, you're going to notice the negative, because it sticks out like a sore thumb. If I'm paying attention to all the daisies and all the birds and everything, I'm going to notice tiger when tiger makes an appearance, or even long before tiger makes an appearance, because tiger's disruptive. You know, the forest gets quiet. See, so this is a very potent point here. And this brings the timing of it up. If I'm aware of everything ahead of time, I can notice trouble before trouble sees me, and then I can get away, right? See trouble before trouble sees you, you can get out of the way. Very simple, very simple, very simple, right? So this is how your timing becomes essential, through being aware. And when I mean being aware, it's not just being aware of what you're feeling and what you're thinking and what you're believing. No, be aware of it all, right? So when we say be aware, we are trying to extend our awareness to everything, not just in location, right? Like in the jungle, I'm aware of the depth of the jungle, as far as I can hear, as far as I can see, as far as I can smell. I'm paying attention to the pattern and the rhythm and the cadence of the jungle, everything, right? But also, we want to be aware in time, because what is appropriate today in the circumstance now might not be appropriate tomorrow. It might not be appropriate in my life context. So when it comes to being aware, we need to do it both in location and in time, right? And also you want to look at awareness of your intents, where you're going, your patterns, your rhythms, all of the stuff, right? So awareness is multi-layered. There's much to awareness. This is what we're all about, expanding our awareness. So freedom of anxiety and worry. The first key point is be aware that you're actually worrying and anxious. Okay, probably some people are, but be aware that you can change. Be aware that there are alternatives. That's the biggest downside in life. People get stuck in their behaviors because they're not aware there are alternatives. Right, Sher?
Yes, exactly.
You've experienced this, and it's a profound shift for you in your awareness that you now are a proponent. You say there are always other choices, right?
Oh, constantly. Choice is one of our biggest tools that we've got. I mean, it's our biggest freedom, our biggest key to freedom. You know, if I were to compare it, choice, we have the choice whether or not we believe in should. You know, we really do. It comes down to it.
Exactly.
But there was something kind of interesting though about what you were talking about, you and Jessica both. You know, and you kind of pulled in off of hers, but then I guess I just want to take it back to when you're talking about all the different shoulds we have: the finances, faith, politics, health, relationships, especially our education, grief. How many people believe that because we've lost somebody, we should grieve? We should be sad. We should be horrified. There's so many. But what I found is really interesting for me is if I don't have should, now this is a question I asked for myself. I don't do this now, but in the past, I would say to myself, well, if I'm not believing in this, if I don't have this should, the result of this, then something's wrong with me. And then that would lead into anxiety and more worry that something is wrong with me.
Exactly.
So there goes back to that feeling and believing loop that you were talking about. So to me, that was a good example of that. So, and it just feeds on itself constantly. It's like, oh, what's wrong with me because I'm not being, you know, financially solvent.
Exactly.
No, there's nothing wrong with you.
Right. Exactly. And to go, you know, in my story there that I was talking about the tiger and awareness, Norma comment was caution. Yes, Norma, we want to take anxiety and worry and transmute it into caution. Caution is appropriate strategy, mindset, attitude towards potential danger. Be cautious, absolutely. But you know, I can be cautious without it being negative. When I'm walking through the forest, right? Okay, la la la, I'm in my little bubble, but I can still la 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 deliberately. And really, I'm loving the forest and I'm paying attention to everything. But in that paying attention to everything, for me, I use this as an appropriate caution strategy. I'm also being cautious. I'm aware there are dangers, but since I'm paying attention to all the beauty in the mourners, I'm automatically paying attention to everything. So it's an automatic caution, which is a no stress caution because I'm having a ball, I'm having fun, but I'm not being ignorant and unaware of the caution or of the danger, the potential danger. But I'm not walking around stressing and fussing because, well, there's no danger right now. There might be danger and I'm taking care of it. I'm being cautious by being aware, by being appreciative. It's a very sophisticated strategy, but boy, is it ever so powerful. I mean, you can just apply this walking down the street. That's it. Doesn't have to be the jungle, the plant jungle. It can be the concrete jungle. Very, very powerful to understand that we can change anxiety and worry and fear into caution, and we can shift caution into awareness. You know, subsume it, as it were, put caution into our awareness. Say, that's how I am going to be cautious, by being fully aware. And how am I going to maintain my awareness? Not because I'm looking to be cautious all the time, but because I'm looking to be appreciative all the time. I'm looking to observe, to understand, to learn. I mean, there's so much that goes on when you expand your awareness. You overflow with stuff, but the caution then is automatic. It's automatic. This is super powerful. Super powerful.
Don't worry if the awareness doesn't come right away. I cannot
say again,
tell
sir?
you that enough.
Sorry, say again.
Do not,
say again. Just repeat.
Please, I just want to make sure that people understand that if you don't have a full awareness, nobody really does. But if it doesn't come right away, it's okay. It's gonna. It
Correct.
will. But don't
Correct.
stress over
Correct.
it. Don't get anxious about it. Don't worry about it.
Correct.
Because
Do the best you can.
I did.
Right.
Well,
Exactly.
see, when we first started all this a couple of years ago, I was really stressed. I didn't understand half the terms. I didn't even know what awareness was. I didn't even know if I had awareness. I knew I was cognizant of the things that were happening to me, but I had no clue.
Yes.
So but it created unnecessary amounts of anxiety and stress because I thought, oh gosh,
Exactly.
maybe I'm a fake because I don't understand any of this. No, I just
exactly.
didn't know about it.
Exactly. Sure is saying something monumentally important. You give me goosebumps on my leg. I don't know why on my leg, but it is. Yeah. It's really interesting. It's like, oh, our whole leg got goosebumps. But who knows? Yeah. But what you're saying is super, super critical. Sure is doing a bunch of things that are monumental that Sure just did. One, she's saying, not so long ago, I was a complete and utter nincompoop and I was in a bubble. I was unaware. I was lost, essentially, right? Okay,
Yep.
I might be laying it on a bit thick, but well, maybe not.
It's
right?
okay.
But you, first of all, you acknowledging that not so long ago that you were a completely different person, right?
Yeah.
First of all, that acknowledgement is key. Right. If you can't acknowledge that you have to learn, well, then you're going to struggle. And at first, you were a little reluctant to ask questions, right, Sure? And it caused, it's kind of, if you'd asked, later you started asking, now you just ask whatever you need to know, you ask. If you'd done it earlier, it would have gone a little quicker, right? You would have gotten somewhere.
Yes.
So faster, right? You would have had those blockages. So two key points. Acknowledge your nincompoopery, people. Acknowledge it. Like, Sure, it's not a big deal. The world doesn't end. It doesn't implode. Right, Sure? I mean, look at Sure.
Yep.
Sure's here. She's good. She's awesome. She's wonderful. And she's acknowledging that she was a total nincompoop at one point in time. And Jessica does the same thing. Same with me.
You mean my world isn't going to implode, Sil?
Big Sure's?
Anybody's. You mean it's not going to implode?
It's not. It's not.
What?
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm pointing to Sure and to you. You both have acknowledged this, and your worlds did not end. Nobody's looking at you and saying, "Oh my God, that's really terrible." Jessica, Sure. Oh, horrible, terrible. Oh my God, you're acknowledging you were a nincompoop. Oh dear. No. I mean, it's just like no. We live in the should. This is one of the most devastating shoulds that you shouldn't ever acknowledge and say out loud that you don't know. What the hell, people? You can't acknowledge your ignorance. You can't acknowledge your failings. No, absolute rubbish. You saying I need to learn. You're not saying I'm broken. You're not saying I'm flawed. You may be, but that's a different issue. But the fact is, the matter is, we are simply freaking ignorant and unaware. That's not the failing. That's a life condition. And my point I want to prove here is, to all the people who might want to disagree with me, say, well, I'm ignorant and this is a bad thing. Say, hang on a second, all you people. Let's just slow down 1 second and say, next time you see a baby, pay attention to how you feel towards the baby, right? Now, most people, when they see a baby, it's like, oh, so cute, so beautiful, and they love the baby. Yeah. Now, tell me, is that baby aware? Is that baby not ignorant? No, they're totally unaware and they're completely freaking ignorant. They know nothing. They're stupid as hell, right?
Yep.
But you don't hate the baby or dislike the baby for that. Well, I tend to think that we can somehow stop being ignorant and unaware. Well, I got news for you people. You're always going to be ignorant and unaware. Always. Compared to the universe, always. You may the degree of it may change, but you're always going to be unaware. So get used to this and make peace with it, right? Don't try and cover it up, because that's where you become an a-hole. Now you're becoming a jackass and an idiot and a fool when you try and pretend that you know when you don't know. Now you're just taking a bad situation and making it worse. Just be ignorant and unaware and acknowledge that you need to learn. Be honest, in other words, rather than be a bullshitter, right? That's when the problem really comes in. Yeah, very big.
Yes.
Very. So the other point that Sure was making, That was, sorry, sure. Hold your point there, please.
Oh, no,
I said
you're good. You're
a couple
good.
of things that you were doing that was huge. First, you acknowledged yourself. Then you pointed out that, hey, the things that we're talking about here, they're not necessarily obvious right away, right? So if they
Right.
don't connect, ask. If they don't connect, ask. If it doesn't make sense to you, ask. If you don't get, you say, well, this word, you're saying your appropriateness. I kind of heard you, but it's still stuck in my head. I still think that appropriateness is like a proper, whatever. I'm still muddled with it. Right? Ask. Explore. Don't stop. Don't let your ignorance be a gate, be a boundary, be a barrier, be a prison. Ask. The moment you start asking and discussing and talking about it, and even this, right? Just say, I heard you say this, but this is what, is going on inside my head. Even if it's a big muddle, express it. The moment it comes out of you, you hear it yourself and you get perspective on yourself and it kind of clarifies, right? Right, Sure?
Uh-huh.
Jessica?
Yep. Every
Yes.
time.
And one
Okay.
one point that you brought on, so that really hit home with me was being comfortable with saying, I don't know. I recently started to truly be comfortable with saying, I don't know. And I actually started that with Cher. And that was when I first started to be comfortable with the, I don't know.
Exactly. Yes. Huge. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. And, that's the thing is also, one point I do also want to make too is that I had to also get comfortable with, the fact that I sometimes can become unaware, and I was unaware, and, that and how the unawareness, complete unawareness had affected my life. And mine, really became really bad when I started using. And that was really when I purposely was like, yeah, I don't want to deal with life,
Yes.
And all the stuff that comes with it.
And you said when I was using, or when I started, now I got news for you people. You say, oh, well, she's talking about drugs, but I don't do drugs. You think you don't. I got news for you people out there. You think you're not using drugs, but you are. Well, shoot is a drug. Yeah, not admitting you're wrong is a drug. And not being able to say, I don't know, is a drug. Self-importance is a drug. Ego is a drug. Inadvertent arrogance is a drug. All sorts of drugs that we connected to, right? Over-ambition. A lot of people get consumed by being ambitious because why? Because they should have an ambition.
Yep.
Says who?
Yep.
No,
Or it
not
should be
necessarily.
perfect.
Exactly. Yeah. Say again, Sure?
Perfection. I said, or it should be perfect. Perfectionism
Exactly.
is
Perfectionism. What a terrible drug that consumes people, and self-doubt, another drug. Lack of self-trust, another drug. So I got news for you guys out there. Addiction is it's rampant. It's rampant. It's just
Anything.
addicted to different things. Exactly.
You can be addicted to food. You can be addicted to the internet. You can be addicted to social media. You can be addicted to reading. Anything that will help you escape and not take responsibility for your actions, thoughts, or words is considered an addiction.
And when those are subtle, right, Jessica, when they internal addictions, like addicted to your own opinions.
Yep.
Now we're talking about really devastating, addicted to your beliefs, right? Again, a lot of people think their beliefs are facts. That's what a belief means, people. It means it's not a fact, right? So when you're believing something, it doesn't make it a fact. Doesn't matter whether you feel this thing is really, you feel it really strongly. It doesn't make it a fact. It just means you strongly feel your belief. And that's fine. You can believe in all sorts of nonsense. You want to believe in the fairy queen? Go ahead. If it works for you, if you get value out of it, there's no reason you cannot believe in things which you may even know it to be nonsense, right? You may know it for a fact, but it can still be valuable to you as long as you're aware. That's the key. Be aware it's a belief, not a fact, right? Be aware. Otherwise, you can become inadvertently arrogant once again, yes? By trying to insist that your beliefs are actually facts when they're a belief. And we see this all too often, right? Very, very powerful, very powerful. So I want to shift here real quick because I want to end early again today. to go to, sorry, go ahead, Sher, while I shift here and I'm screen sharing.
No,
say.
no, it just picked it. Whenever I move my phone, it does that. So
Oh,
yeah,
I see.
you're good.
No worries. I mean, I like it when you guys jump in. I really do. And it's not being rude in this context because we're in a discussion and a profound discussion. We're sharing. So we're feeding off each other. It's a collaboration. It's a discussion. It's a conversational collaboration. It's very powerful. So I want to talk about distortions of guilt, right? If we haven't done what we know we needed to do, when we know we are thus unprepared or even incompetent, because we've not made efforts to learn, we feel guilty about our lack of appropriate effort, and we can project this forward as anxiety and worry. Now, I'm talking here in this year, right? I'm talking about, I'm trying to, there we go, trying to highlight it, right? I'm talking about where we haven't done what, here's a good example of should, right? But we haven't done what we feel we needed to do. We weren't thorough, we weren't prepared, we were lazy. And well, now I'm going into a situation, I'm going to the meeting at work and I didn't do the research, I didn't do the homework, I didn't think it through. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to wing it. Well, now you've got actual reason to be a little bit anxious and worrisome, correct? Because you've been crappy. So be aware. The point is, be aware that much of our anxiety and worry is simply self-created because we were just lazy or crappy, right? All right. So now though, right. So guilt is not good to feel because of its implied origin and thus our implied responsibility. When we do feel guilty, it's much easier to shift into feeling anxiety and worry, because those are much more acceptable and even mean we are good, right? Because of our earlier associations with anxiety and worry, to say, well, this is what good people do. You should be anxious and worried about bad things happening. That means you're a good person, right? But if you use that to replace when it's kind of appropriate for you to feel a bit guilty. You should feel guilty for being crappy. You should feel guilty for being lazy. You should feel a bit guilty for not doing what you were supposed to do, right? In terms of your own supposed to, right? You know that you're supposed to get ready for the meeting, but you don't do it. Well, feel a bit guilty then. Feel a bit bad. This is appropriate, right? Because otherwise you're just going to keep on doing the same crap over and getting into trouble, right? But don't replace it with feeling anxiety and worry and pretending now, oh, I'm a good person all of a sudden. No, not appropriate, right? That's why this heading is distortions of guilt. Don't be distorting your guilt to try and into your appropriate guilt into anxiety and worry, right? Does it make sense what I'm saying? Let me just read the last section here. Anxiety and worry are often thus just distortions of guilt, and also other feelings and emotions we don't want to acknowledge, deal with, and feel, such as shame, anger, resentment, jealousy, etc. They all get distorted into anxiety and worry. I'm making this is a short, it's one slide because I'm touching on a huge subject, but this is it's a very compressed course. It's very short. And so I just touch on things that are big topics. But this, how we distort, okay, I'm using guilt because guilt is a very easy one to do this, but we can do the same with shame and anger and resentment and jealousy and all sorts of other stuff, right? And we can distort them, shift them, and transmute them into anxiety and worry. And now suddenly we're okay. Oh, well, I'm a good person because I'm worrying about this stuff. No, you're just transferring one thing into another, and you're trying to pretend that you're all good because you don't want to face the awful truth that you were crappy.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
actually
that's a
answers
perfect
my
one right there.
question. It is a perfect one. Sorry. That actually answers my question because I was going to ask, like, so would it be safe to say that guilt is a unfaced awful truth or an unacknowledged awful truth?
Correct.
And we then,
right. So
if you are a good person, then you can, easily distort that and start to feel anxiety and worry because you have not acknowledged that, hey, you were a fuck up. You did shit that was not okay.
Exactly. And, now it's very key here. The very key, the intentionality is very key here, right? Now, if I did everything that I thought I needed to do, in other words, I was impeccable. I did my research, I did all my work, I thought it through, and I went to the meeting and the meeting goes into a mess, and I realized, oh my God, I'm still totally ignorant and I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. That's fine. That's okay. There's nothing to feel guilty about. You did everything you did and you realized you needed to learn more. Okay, this happens. This happens all the time. It's no big deal, right? Then you go back to the drawing board and say, well, I got to up my game. That's all, right? And I've got more to learn. So, but that doesn't mean that you have anything to feel guilty about. No, you didn't. You did everything you needed to do and discovered you needed more. No problem. It's when you knew that you needed to do more and didn't do it. That's when you need to feel guilt, right? In other words, when you didn't listen to your own inner sensibility, you weren't impeccable, you didn't pay attention to your conscience, and you did what you knew was crappy, then your guilt is appropriate. I'm not talking about many people feel guilty about all sorts of things. Well, like parents, their kids turn out to be not what they wanted them to be, and then they feel guilty. It's all my fault. It's not your bloody fault. The kids have their own choice, and they're going to go. The universe is involved. The whole world is involved. You know, you don't raise your kid only by yourself, right? It's impossible to do that, right? Even if you were living in I don't know, in the middle of nowhere, and it's only you and the kid, it's still you and the kid, right? So you don't have total influence on them. You can't mind control them and all that. So my point is that when it comes to guilt is so often distorted because of good people feeling bad about things not going the way they wanted them to go. That's a different issue. I'm talking about legitimate guilt now, right? When you should be feeling guilty, and I'm using the word should, right? Or ought is maybe a better way to say. When
deliberately,
guilt is appropriate, in other words. Don't go and take that appropriate guilt. Suffer your guilt. Yes, you were a jackass, you were crappy, and now this is the price you pay for it, right? So this is why guilt is appropriate. It's an appropriate price for being crappy. Right. So understand this, but don't go and take it and move it into and transform it into anxiety and worry and say, well, okay, well, now I'm worrying about I'm going to have a problem in my meeting, but now I'm a good person because you know what's going on and you're just transforming it. So don't bullshit yourself, in other words, right? Sure.
Right. One of the traps that I got myself into when my kids were much younger was, yes, part of me said, okay, their choices are their responsibility. I didn't teach them to make these choices. However, my guilt was, I was transposing that into, I was doing exactly this. I was distorting it into the anxiety and worry. Because when one of them would, I don't know, maybe they were getting ready to get kicked out or their power was going to get cut off or something, they'd call me, they'd ask me for money, hey, Mom, I need help. Well, feeling like the guilty mom that, oh gosh, they're in this situation because of the way I was when they were younger and because, they didn't have a very good life and all these other excuses that I was applying. I let that anxiety and worry get to me and that guilt. And so I'd go ahead and pay the bill.
Exactly.
So then
Which in turn,
I was going, right.
Sorry,
Go
Cher,
ahead.
go ahead. And say, which in turn, I myself had learned how to manipulate that guilt. And so I would, I learned how to manipulate and use that guilt against you, which in turn, like I knew that, this is how my mom feels right now. So I think that, it's prime time right now to ask her for money because that was essentially guilt buying or shame buying. And, that's the same exact thing I did with CJ, and he learned how to manipulate that out of me. And, so yes, whereas some of the behaviors are learned directly from you, there are some that were not learned directly from you. And me being as the youngest, I learned a lot from my older brothers that were not healthy.
Exactly.
So now fast forward 20, 30 years. Okay. We're gonna jump way into the future. now at this point, what I'm seeing is my anxiety in the past would, oh gosh, I don't know, a few months ago or so, I would get an anxious moment where, oh gosh, this is happening because of how I was, way back when. I'm not so certain anymore that, that I can actually believe in that. What happened then was what happened then. And now the choices I make now are all based back on, I'm going to take it right back to feelings and beliefs.
That's
What I
so
believe
potent.
about
It's
myself.
so potent. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and what really started that ability to manipulate and seeing that manipulation too is way back when, was, you know, I would get in trouble and I'd get out of something, you know, my last day there and you come pick me up and guess what you had? You had my favorite candy bar and soda right there waiting for me. And
I
I'm
sure
like,
did.
heck yeah, score, you know, so that guilt actually enabled a lot.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you know, and that's something that like I knew that, you know, it was unnecessarily so because I understood your actions, I understood why you did things, I understood how things went down. However, I still played on that because it also fed my addiction for so long too. So
Yeah.
I like, oh hey, I need extra money, this and that. And you know, I used you as a fix-all for my poor choices.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when we start to distort things, you know, I'm just saying they're distortions of guilt. I simply used guilt as the convenient one because we're all familiar with it. But when we start distorting things, then it causes all sorts of other problems, like Jessica is just exemplifying here. Very, very, very powerful.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yes, Janet. And so I got to go soon. I just want to wrap up here with the task. Wonderful, Janet. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I'm glad you're here. All right. So try not worrying about something and see what happens. Do you feel like a
That's
bad
ridiculous.
person when you do? And is this valid if you do? Right? So how else can you show or apply your goodness and caring? Well, I know Sher and Jessica and Janet. Hello, Janet. I know all of you. You have multiple ways of showing and applying your goodness and caring, correct? Without needing to worry and feel guilty and anxious. Yes? All right.
Yes.
Do you have to do
Absolutely.
a should or do you have a choice? Make a list of typical shoulds in your daily life. Now, you guys have already done this. I don't know about Janet, but I know Jessica. Sure. Right? When you make
I
this
think it's
list of shoulds,
powerful
it's like,
exercise.
oh, moly, I never realized that I was doing this. Ah, man, I was just, they were unaware shoulds pressuring my life. Very potent, very potent.
I cannot express enough for people to think out of the box if they're going to make that list. I'm serious. I encourage anybody to make that list and think out of the box. Don't go with your typical shoulds.
Exactly. Yes, it's huge. It's a huge exercise. And don't just do that list in one go. Yes, let them all come as they come and then set the list there and say, there's more coming and wait for more to come. And as you go through your day, you know, oh my goodness, yes, I should. Go and write it on that list right away. Don't think you're going to remember it because you don't, right? Go and write it down right away. And then as you go, you're going to become aware of so many, like Sher says, think outside the box. You're going to become aware of shoulds that you never imagined were a should, that are pressing you in your life to do things in ways that are not healthy, not good, not fun, right? Are you doing what you can to prepare as much as you can for the typical issues of life? In other words, if you now want to worry, fine, but do something. Did you do everything you can do? No, you haven't. So your worries are based on you not being prepared, right? Do you feel guilty because you have not done as much as you could have done? Yes, likely, and you're transferring that guilt into worry and anxiety. Does this get dealt with by worrying? No, it doesn't. Okay, I'm answering the questions there for whoever, but, you know, pay attention to these. You know, take a screenshot of this if necessary. I would recommend, and really do these exercises.
I want to do this again
powerful.
because I'm curious as to see how my answers differ from the first time.
Wonderful.
You're going to have more. I'm going to tell you that. I can come up with new shoulds every day. Honestly.
There you go. Exactly.
If you're really deliberate. Norma, and I know you got to go, but I wanted to mention this really quick. Norma asked me a question, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, about, you know, deliberate living, about it. And I was trying to describe it. And here comes another way, Norma, if you're still there, how to really think about deliberate living, which is look at your shoulds.
Exactly.
And all the shoulds in your day, if you turn those around, if you're aware of them, you're going to find them. You're going to see them.
Exactly.
If you are being deliberate.
Yes.
Everything in your day.
Yes. such a huge point. And Norma asks wonderful questions. I love Norma's
She does.
questions. Really put Norma. But this is the great crime of should. Should robs us of deliberate living, of living deliberately, right?
Yes, it does.
You
Yes, it
going,
does.
"Oh, should." It
Yep.
kills deliberate living. It's a massive, massive, massive point. So this is, why should is the leash of the masses, because it robs deliberate living. So wonderful quote, wonderful,
Yeah.
very magical point to end on. Anything to add before we go, Janet? Anything? You came in at the
No.
tail end of things, but
Yep.
more than welcome. Sir, Jessica?
Just the only thing I
No.
want to say, one last final thing is, the only last final thing I'd like to say is that if anybody is really thinking that they should be in a relationship, check that. Just please check it.
Exactly.
Really
Exactly.
examine
No. Yeah. It's a choice.
There's no shit about anything.
Exactly.
Yes, because then that implies that you have to be in a relationship, and that is also self deprecating in that self. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
you
it
can
is.
want
Exactly.
to be in a relationship, but
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
don't have to. So therefore, you shouldn't.
Exactly. And it implies if you're not in a relationship, there's something wrong with you.
That you're defective. Say thank you right there.
Broken.
That's
You
where I was
defect.
going
No,
with that.
come on. Throw those damn stuff out the window. Please, people, throw it out the window. Live your
Yeah.
own life. Live
I would
deliberately.
challenge everybody to make a list of should. I would love to see that. How many people
Yes.
you got in the group?
Yes. Post them,
That's a
people.
lot of
Post them.
shoulds.
Post your shoulds. Post your default unaware shoulds that you become aware of.
I
Yes,
should
post
not
them.
like guys because they are all bad.
yes. Because
Good one.
one was bad, or two, or three, or a few. Yes, yeah. Generalization shoulds. Very
Yes.
powerful.
I had to
Jessica.
laugh at that because now my thought process on that has changed. So yeah.
Yes.
And now I'm going to have to say I need to go though.
Marvelous. Yeah.
I have a mercy me machine calling my name that I've got to get to here in a few minutes.
Okay, we
So-
gotta go.
Godspeed,
Yes, we're
Sheriff.
cutting to
Godspeed.
Janet. Marvelous time here. So brilliant. I love it. Okay, see you guys next time. This was too
See you
wonderful.
guys.
This was too
Okay.
wonderful.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Love ya. Bye, guys.
Yes. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Wonderful.